But it seemed to be, when you're really, really good at this, curriculum assessment and instruction are three legs of the triangle, and when you look through any one of them, you ought to see the other two. And maybe that's the insight that I continue to get when I think about why we wanted to do this video, and why particularly we wanted to use the UBD framework as our basis for differentiation.
Yeah, that's interesting, that because I continue to be on that journey myself through differentiation. I think we all do as we're educators. I've focused first on the quality curriculum piece, and that's at stage one. It's really being clear myself about what I want kids to know and understand and be able to do. As you think about that, then, and you keep that as your primary focus, then you start to say, if these are the outcomes for kids, how do I ensure that everyone has opportunity to get there, and what is it going to take for them to get there? The piece that I was not good at for a really long time, and just feel like I can even speak to better now personally, is that ongoing and pre-assessment, that I was using that effectively enough to make sure that just what you said, that if any lens I look through, I could see all of the other pieces naturally in line. The importance of being clear to yourself about those outcomes, really crystal clear about those outcomes, should be the driving force behind everything else you do. So I do that, and then I decide, what does assessment need to look like? That pre-assessment, so I'm really sure that I know how I'm going to tier for kids in terms of their readiness. That ongoing assessment that allows me multiple informal ways to continue to gather information and use it for my next step in planning, or to go back and reframe. Both Kristen and Sherry are just so natural with their kids. They're so respectful, and it's wonderful because they can say to their kids very freely, if you need a little extra help, come and sit with me. And the climate is there that suggests that that's a really perfect thing to do. Sherry, and I don't know if this is because I've seen her in other settings when she wasn't being videotaped, and so I don't know if I can say this, but let me just, so I saw her in a really different light when we were doing the taping, because she doesn't hardly falter at all when she's going through things, but the thing that she still is missing right now is being really explicit with kids about what that outcome is, really visually and verbally explicit about that. And bringing them back to that at the end of every activity that they do, that you kind of open and you close with that. So like when we saw Diane today and she said, let's share some of the things that you found today, she was ensuring that they knew that there were expectations, that you come up with the information that's pertinent to this learning, and that we can talk a little bit about what your next steps might be. And I think that's an important facet of it.
And I like the fact that she opened up with some kids and say, now maybe that's a question you need to pursue tomorrow. She was linking them to what they needed to do next, which I thought was really a nice piece.
Exactly.
What about Kristen?
Kristen's even more interesting because she just...
she's so young.
She
Third-year
is.
Teacher.
That's right.
You're looking that good.
Yeah, and it has actually been in a couple of different settings during that short period of time. So she has sort of the wherewithal to be doing what she's doing. You know, she's one of those people that has the heart and the mind to do this. You know, I think that Kristen could take herself to a little higher level now. I think that all of the planning that they do as a team is really wonderful. And I think my guess is that she's sort of seen herself as the youngest team member and has sort of relied on her, you know, the other two people in that team to kind of help her look at things. I'd like to see her take more of a leadership role and step away from some of the things they're doing. You know, one of the things Kristen has is that frame of mind about differentiation. I really wish we'd had time to have more discussions with her about that rather than just a specific strategy that she's using. Because differentiation truly is about how you think about instruction. It's not how it necessarily looks. You know, if I'm really differentiating, I'm prepared to be flexible at a moment's notice when I see that kids are getting lost, that I have ways to kind of repair my own design and work with kids pretty quickly. So it's not about, you know, the kinds of activities. It's about the approach that I have overall to it. And I see Kristen is really close to that. I mean, she's right there on that cusp of just, that's the way she looks at teaching and learning.
Well, trying to coach Diane, who is, you know, one of, you know, she indicated 30-year teachers who's still learning. What did you see with her that you would coach her the next time you had a chance to be with her? What would you say to her?
I think it's always good to kind of go back and reframe and say, let's identify what the key indicators of of success are going to be, or what is it that we're really looking for, or start out with what did you learn yesterday that you want to follow up on today, some way to bring that back together. You know, one of the things she did really well was right away asking kids to share what it would look like when they were looking in groups, you know, so that those management pieces are in place. And I want to say that I think a piece that she and Kristen and Sherry do really well is those procedural pieces that kids know the expectations in movement and organizing materials and being respectful and working with one another. That's right, all of those things. And those have been explicitly taught. I mean, they teach those like, you know, they know what they want kids to know and understand and do in terms of how they present themselves in the classroom. One of the things I'd like her to think about again is to relook at her rubrics for the projects. She has a rubric, as she said, that's lined up with every single project that she had. I'd like there to at least to be a common core in that there's something that is that really strong global understanding that answers those essential questions across all of those. And then the way they get there would look a little bit different. You know, but I'd like to have more conversation with Diane about that. I would do a project and only have one rubric. I would have, you know, 9 projects and have one rubric because they would all know that there's some framework with some additional information that might be expressive about each of those projects on the top. So I'd like to talk more with Diane about how she came to setting up her rubrics this way versus the way I would view that. Good. If it comes out with the same essential development for students, the same essential outcomes for students, and I wouldn't argue it with her, but I think maybe sometimes we make more work for ourselves than we need to, too. And the thought process could be turned around to make that look a little different.
That's good. On behalf of us at the Forum and working with you and really catching up on your life and the work that you do with teachers, one compliment I really do have to give you, and you've been consistent about this throughout, you have been so gracious about recognizing where these people are as individuals. I think you characterize them all in a very thoughtful way, and I'm sure if they get a chance to watch this, and particularly this piece with you, they'll pick up something and continue to move with you. But it's been a pleasure to be with you, to work with you.
Thanks, Leonard. I appreciate that.